podcast of the Emergency Podcast System. Had this been a real podcast, you would leave edified and entertained.
Yeah, I'm kidding. Although it is sort of a test. I am testing out my new Yeti Nano mic with the intent of creating boring podcasts similar to the columns I write for the Winkler Morden Voice here in southern Manitoba, just to get excess ideas out of my head. And hopefully I'll be partnering with my wife on this and we can do some back and forth. In the meantime, this is a bit of a test. I think you've probably heard it said that certain people have been criticized for running for politics or having an opinion about certain things. Political. Actors are a great example. People are often pointing out, well, you're an actor, you're not a politician, you shouldn't have an opinion about X, Y, or Z, whether that's the abortion debate, gender identity, perhaps, you name it, the environment, climate change. Anytime an actor particularly speaks up and offers opinions on the subject matter, they're often criticized right away. And many times they're simply told to shut up, right? When they run for political office, they're often mocked about that as well. What qualifies you to be a politician? Only a select few actors have made the jump. Notably Ronald Reagan in the United States, first as governor of California and then on to president of the United States for 2 terms. Then, of course, you have Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was also governor of California. And the list goes on. Clint Eastwood, mayor of Carmel by the Sea. So, I mean, politicians have successfully made the jump actors have successfully made the jump to politics. And they've arguably been pretty good at it. The reason I bring this up is because what qualifies a person to be a politician? I mean, sure, there are university degrees in politics and political science and the art, and mostly art. I wouldn't say the art and science or science of politics. It's really an art for the most part. But at the end of the day, what qualifies a person to be a politician is simply being a human, an existing person within their society. And that's frustrating to a lot of people. We don't want so-and-so running for political office because they'd be a nightmare. What do they know? They didn't go to school. They didn't graduate high school. They work as an X, Y, or Z. They're a woman, depending upon the era that we're talking about. They're gay, current era. There's all kinds of reasons people raise for people not running for office. But what I wonder about is what really qualifies a person to be a politician. And frankly, I'm not so sure I want an overly qualified politician. I mean, there's something to be said for consistency and, allowing someone to remain in office for more than one term so that they can accomplish things, because it does take a long time to get anything done. Heck, here in Morden, Manitoba, a small community of 10,000 people, we have been talking about the need for a new wastewater treatment plant for 15 years now. And for pretty much that entire time, the common attitude around it from the political realm or city administration is that it will be happening any day. Any day now, that wastewater treatment plant is going to be built. And that's been the message for 15 years. It's often been the reason why certain things haven't been done, because any day now we're getting the funding from the federal government, which will be matched by the provincial government and then matched locally to build this wastewater treatment plant. Sadly, if we'd have been able to build it 15 years ago, it'd probably be about a 10th or a 5th of the cost that's going to be now. But this is the way it is. And so that's a bit of an argument, a long-winded argument for why I think politicians should be allowed to run for multiple terms. But that doesn't really speak to the qualifications of a politician. Most politicians, particularly at the municipal level, as you ratchet up to provincial or state, and ultimately national, it seems you start seeing more informal requirements applied to the role. But at the municipal level, where we're talking right now, I mean, any citizen who can run for office with certain, I think, restrictions. I think that you have to be a property owner, which is a little ridiculous. I don't know if you still have to be a property owner if they change that, but up until fairly recently, you had to own property in the municipality that you're running in, which is silly because, I mean, as a resident, whether you pay rent or not, you're contributing to the tax base one way or another. But be that as it is, whether it's municipal or provincial or federal, the primary factor that seems to contribute to the success of someone being elected is visibility, personality, the ability to communicate. That's my cat. I don't know if you can hear that in the background. We'll see if the microphone picks it up. So the ability to communicate ideas and vision to the electorate. Sometimes those ideas are to tear down things that previous administrations have developed. That can be an easy bandwagon for a person to jump on from a political perspective when they're running for office. If they can wrap themselves around a cause or a moment or event in the municipality that is primarily disliked by people, and then they can run against that and state that they're going to do everything they can to remove it. This is a tried and true method for getting elected to political office. And I don't necessarily agree with it. I mean, it depends on what the issue is. I'm not a big fan of looking backwards from a political perspective unless absolutely necessary. I think when you spend most of your time as a politician undoing what's been done, you run the risk of setting yourself up for the same thing to happen to you when you leave office and the next administration comes in, because you've set a bit of a precedent of a political realm that's primarily destructive. There's not a lot of vision, frankly, in undoing the past. Better, unless it's something ridiculously controversial, it's better to look forward. Allow the previous politicians who were elected to be representatives and make decisions by proxy on behalf of the residents of the community. Better to allow those decisions to stand, because that's why they were elected. And then you move forward and make your choices and decisions, apply your vision with the rest of your council to continue to manage, grow, develop the community that you've been elected to serve. Now, and as far as qualifications are concerned, if you have bookkeeping or accounting experience, great. I think that's fantastic. Any financial experience for someone holding office is useful. Management experience, all these kinds of things that one would want to see in a person heading up a multi-million-dollar organization such as a city, I think are good things. Too much experience can be a bit of a problem, though, because a council's role is not an operational role. It's not their role to do the bookkeeping. It's not their role to get into the nitty-gritty of and details of the budget or the city or public works office. It's their job to establish a vision and to establish good policy and manage the operational staff through the CAO and allow them to do their job. So, when there's that to think about, as far as politics are concerned. I think what you do want is you want people who can work with others. You want people who are visionary. I think it would be great to have people with some governance experience. They've worked on a board or been familiar with how boards work, or just are good learners. Because anybody, frankly, should be able to run for office, whether it's municipal, provincial, or state, or national. Anyone, regardless of their experience, 18 and older, should be able to successfully run for office and be given the opportunity to represent the people who voted for them, and also, of course, the people who didn't vote for them. That's the role. So, yeah, I guess it's a bit of a rant. I don't know what brought it up, frankly. I think it's just that back to the actors again, this idea that certain people just shouldn't be talking about certain things is ridiculous, because we all have opinions. We all have ideas. regardless of who we are. We all have an experience. We all have a filter or a paradigm through which we see the world, and we apply that to the decisions we make. And we all have a level of experience, I think, that can be positive in managing, running a city as an elected representative, or a state, province, or national country. So that's my test of the new mic, and obviously I have to work on things like my ums and ahs and stuff like that. This is kind of the style of podcast I think I'm going to be leaning into. There's not going to be a whole lot to it, to be honest, in terms of theme. I think the most successful ventures when it comes to social media, as far that I can see, are very siloed, focused, themed things, right? The Instagram page that focuses entirely on magnetic eyelashes, as an example, which I don't follow and I don't even know exists, but it probably does. Will be successful. What I plan on doing is just being macro, very broad, thematically, subject matter wise. There's not going to be really any focus to it. This is a little bit of the podcast version of Seinfeld without all the hilarity. It's just a podcast about nothing, in the sense that it's a podcast about everything and whatever pops into my head, and hopefully eventually my wife, so we can back and forth with each other. Anyways, great talking to you. If there's nobody out there, great talking to myself, and I've enjoyed this. We'll see how it sounds. Thanks a lot.